Hey guys, welcome back to Monsters and Mazes. Today we're going to talk about how to make bags of stuff. You can use this to put in the back of your little RPG wagons. You can make sandbags out of them, or just like bags of flour and stuff. You could have like a maze of these things. And what I'm talking about is little terrain like this. You can stack it as high as you want. Very cheap, very easy. You can put them without the base, just so they can plop back in the back of a cheap wagon or something. I have my good wagons upstairs. This is just cheap cardboard. This is horrible. Never make a wagon like this. I'm ashamed of it. But this is great. You can make all kinds of terrain. You can stack this as high as you can, and all you need to do to make these is get a coffee cup. See, like mine. Wait a minute. No, coffee cup. This, out of styrofoam. Basically, cut this in half, and you'll notice that this edge is a little thicker. I cut this off, straighten it out, and that makes the best bags. However, if I'm doing a lot of layers, I'll make the bottom layers. I'll use as much of this as I want. And then the very top layer, I use the thick stuff. So you don't waste a lot. A couple of coffee cups, and I made all of mine, and I'll show you how to do it. Thanks. Hey guys, here's some examples of ones that I've made, and I've just based them on cardstock, cereal card actually, and then put some duct tape on the back to give it some strength. So basically this is just 2 layers. And this is some homemade flock. So you could say that this is some kind of green stuff. Here's some kind of red stuff. I made some where there's little bags on the edge. And I made my bases where they're an inch, 2 inch. They're always equal to some kind of an inch. So just to make it easier to play. I don't use the grids, but I still find this is helpful. So here's one that's just a single grid, and you can see it's just a couple just stacked on top of each other. And here's some that's not been based or painted yet. This is pretty much just raw styrofoam and an ink pen, and I'll show you how to do this in just a second. And here's some just little bits off to the side that I could glue onto something. So basically I got all of this here. I think this was 2 cups, maybe 3 cups. And this is just homemade this is sawdust that I added paint to and ran through a strainer is how I make my flock. There's lots of videos on how to make your own flock, but basically I use the duct tape on the back because when you glue this on with PVA glue, it tends to bow a little bit. So I don't know if you can hear that. So that just helps straighten it out. So anyway, what you do is you cut off this section of the cup, and you'll get something like this. This is half of it. I basically just straighten it out with trying not to break it, just kind of run my fingers around this to kind of straighten it out, get it semi-straight like this. And then where I find this point, this bottom point right here, I'll put my ruler like this. Whoop. And just to try to maximize my material to work with. So mark my line with a ballpoint pen, and I find that if you extend the pen the whole time, it helps with the ruler. So then I just kind of mark, I usually freehand it, but it's about 3/16 of an inch here. So I mark 3/16 of an inch. You can get about 3 of them. If you want to go a little skinnier, you can get 4. So you get about 3, and I went ahead, just so you don't watch me cutting stuff out, I cut it out and snip the ends off. So this is what half of a coffee cup will get you. So from here, you just decide how, you can see I did 4. I did 4 here. From here, you just decide how big you want it. And that's where these cutting mats like. So if I wanted to make a little 1 square, where's my 1 square? I thought I had 1 square. If I wanted to make like a 1-inch piece like this to fit in there, you know, I would just cut it here. But you decide how far you want. I'm going to make one that fits on a 2-inch piece. But before, just to make my life easy, I'll go ahead and mark out. I make these about 1/4 of an inch, each 1/4 of an inch along. So just to make my life easy. Go ahead and mark this out as bad as I'm doing. And I freehand all this usually, but I know when I watch videos, I like to know pretty much what the precise measurements are. So then I just kind of run that across, because we're just making sacks of grain, wheat, which is a grain, beans, you know, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And we're going to do a lot to this. I'll show you what this looks like. This is just like some kind of rough grid. So that's pretty much all I did, was grid that out, and I'll cut off this excess here. So if I use the thick pieces for the top, if I was making a multi-layer deck like this, I would use this skinny stuff, and I only do the outside. I only worry about the outside, but I'm going to show you the detailing that I do on the top. So let's say that I wanted to have 2 inches of this. So I decided I want it to be on a 2-inch base, so I'm going to cut it just short, the one that's short of the 2-inch. Again, you can do this however you want. So this is going to be my top piece. So all I'm doing here is I'm going to go over the lines and indent them more. Just making that separation. I'm going probably about 3/4 of the way in. I'm not putting a lot of pressure. I'll show you here in a minute. And I always try to go in, which I was going out there. Try to go in towards the middle when I do this, so I don't get little flecks peeling off. Always try to go in towards the middle. Otherwise, I have chunks fly off. And you can make this and say you can just have one level and use the 2.5D and say the guys can't see above this. You could say this is whatever height you want, but all I did was indent that a little bit, and that looks pretty much like crap. So the secret is to take the pin and then push in the middle where you're making this little V indent like this. So here's the bag. So you're basically pushing in here to make this little V indent. That's kind of what we're going for. So I'm doing that with every one on the outside. Makes it look kind of like little teeth. And I also do it on the sides, though not as much. I'm just kind of trying to give it that kind of like dog food sack look. And that is all I would do on if this was not a top piece. If this was one of these bottom layers, this would be all I would do, because then I would stack the other stuff on top, so all the other detail would be kind of lost. But since this is the top piece, I'll go ahead and do the same thing on the inside pieces. And this is where you got to be a little tricky, because you're basically just poking your pin in and pulling it to the side, poking your pin in and pulling it to the side. You're not trying to puncture the through. You're just kind of making that little V. Kind of looks like little baby teeth. So I just poke in the middle and kind of make a little hole here. Right here I didn't do a very good indent. So this is the secret, I think, is little slight pressure here. You're definitely not wanting to rip it off. I keep my fingers and I kind of push and pulling it together to give it more strength. And that is it. In a nutshell, that is the stinking bag. You can stack as many as you want. You can go L shapes, whatever. I'll roll aluminum foil to give it texture sometimes. You don't have to if you want that little texture. Some of them I did, like here's one. You can kind of see the texture. It gives it, for when you put the wash on, a little bit more detail. Some of them I didn't. It's definitely up to you. Some of the stuff, like I'll throw, like here's one I had. You know, you can glue little pieces. These are slightly different size bags, but you can make, you know, as many of them as you want. And then you can glue pieces on. You can cut little ones off to throw on. See, these are all the same size. So now if I wanted, like I said, this to be the top piece, I could say, hey, I'm going to go, I'll just do 2 stacks. Let's go ahead and cut that there. I'll do the exact, I'll show you how to just do the bottom. So we'll say that that's the top piece. It's going to fit like that. Oh, see, I should have just made this the top piece. Then we could have had it like that. But I'll make this. So this one's really easy. You just kind of, since this one's going to be the top piece, again, just go over, make these little indents, make these a little deeper. I did 1/4 here. Again, on the other ones, all the other ones I did, I basically freehanded and say, hey, that looks good. I don't think there's a weights and measures company at World of Greyhawk. That's my campaign setting. So, and then this is just a little indentation baby teeth. And then on the side, I hope you guys can see that. So again, since this isn't going to be the top, that's all I do. And I would simply use PVA, white PVA, Elmer's, whatever you want to call it, glue them together, and that would be a 2-stack side that would fit on a 2-inch 2x1 square. And again, if you wanted to make it an L, you just glue that on there, your cardstock, and it's cereal board card. Can't get any cheaper than this, guys. And how I painted it, I paint this separately before I put it on the card. So I'll get my cereal card, I cut it in an inch strip, cut it to length. On this, for my stone wall, I use the DMG sponge paint for kind of a stone look. And then I'll let that dry, and I will have painted this if I want to paint it anytime. Sometimes I'll do antique white, sometimes not. On these I did antique white. After these are glued, I will glue the last piece, and I have found it better to use a glue stick because there's less warping, but you could just use Elmer's glue, glue it on there, and then a little bit of white PVA Elmer's glue to put the flock down. And even taking all those steps, this still wants to warp a little bit sometimes. So you can just basically bend it, and you can hear it kind of popping, and it will detach itself from wherever it needs to detach itself, and it's still glued on there very well. And then when I'm done with everything I want, I spray it with PVA, or I'm sorry, I spray it with polyurethane. And that is it. Make a bunch of them. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks.